I'll yield the balance of our time to Mr. Young for the closing on his legislation.
The gentleman is recognized.
I thank the chairman. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for this opportunity to try and advance legislation, improve the nation's health care law in a bipartisan fashion. You know, I don't understand the visceral resistance to trying to lighten the load on our nation's hourly workers. The wage earners, the people who need it most, our cafeteria workers, our substitute teachers, our people at retail centers all across the country, they are the ones during this still recovering, seemingly dormant recovery for so many of my constituents, they are the ones who are demanding these sorts of changes. There is plenty of evidence. Much has been made of the evidence here. There's plenty of evidence in every congressional district across the country that people are hurting on account of this 30 hours is full-time provision in the Affordable Care Act. And this all comes before the employer mandate was kicked in, and it has followed in the recent days since it officially kicked in on January 1st. This was just implemented. It will be amazing to see the evidence come in. Should we not change the definition of full-time employment up to 40 hours if once people figure out that they're going to be paying a big old tax for not buying every single employee above that 30-hour threshold government-sanctioned health insurance. More evidence. There are over 300 groups that have associated themselves with this legislation and asked that we pass it. Among those groups is the More Time for Full-Time Coalition, which includes such groups as the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, Indiana Grocery and Convenience Store Association, Indiana Restaurant and Lodging Association, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, the Michigan Grocers Association, the Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association, the Michigan Restaurant Association. For example, I ask unanimous consent to enter this document into the record.
Objection so ordered.
Why wait? We know we're headed off a cliff here. This is a fiscally irresponsible provision within the Affordable Care Act. Who would imagine that we would try and insure 500,000 additional new workers at the expense of up to $105 billion in cash wages? It's unfair. We ought not try and finance health insurance for some Americans at the cost of hours and wages for other Americans. And finally, the Save American Workers Act will remedy these defects in the current law by resulting in zero workers who work 40 or more hours being at risk of a possible massive cut in their hours and wages down to 29 hours. And it will enable those who work 30 to 35 hours to no longer be at risk of cuts in their much-needed hours and wages. For those reasons and so many others, I just encourage my colleagues, have an open mind here, work with us for the good of the country to improve our nation's health care laws, and I yield back.